Welcome to the 17th common session of Sunoikis Digital Classics 2016. Today, which is Friday, not Wednesday, we have another guest who is Irine Darchia. She is Associate Professor at the Tbilisi in the Department of Classics at the University of Tbilisi in Georgia. I have to say that we have a strong Sunoikis Digital Classics community in Georgia because Irine and her students and colleagues are working on different projects in the digital humanities concerning ancient literature and epigraphy. And today Irine is going to show us one of her projects, which is about Plato, Phaedo, so is a reading of the text of Plato using different digital tools. So Irine, welcome to Sunoikis, welcome back, I have to say, and thank you for your participation today.
Good evening, Monica. Good evening, everybody. All Sunoikis. It's my big honor and it's my pleasure to be here with you online to share with you some thoughts, some ideas about reading, rethinking Plato's heritage using digital methods. Our life is going digital. We are teaching, we are learning, we do everything in digital way. We do shopping, our relationships, our friendship, everything goes digital. And of course, we started reading and understanding texts and better understanding and better readings of literary texts using digital methods, digital approaches. But unfortunately, till now, there's one field which is less investigated in this way. This is philosophy, and in this case, in my case, this is a philosophy of Plato. Plato was a great thinker, a great philosopher. He is one of the founders of philosophy, of modern philosophy. Without Plato, there's no philosophy. He was a great writer as well, and as a great thinker, I'm absolutely sure that if he would live in 21st century, he would be digital humanitarian. So, while speaking about digital classics and digital humanities, it's extremely important to include Plato as well, to include philosophy. My session will be devoted, or will be done not only to Sunoikis society, and maybe not so much to Sunoikis society, but to the wider society of Platonists, of the people which are dealing with Plato's texts. Because, first of all, they are much less familiar with digital tools than the Sunoikis community, and except of this, they tend to be more conservative in many ways. I would like to share with you one my personal experience. Last year, I made a first attempt to share my thoughts, my ideas, my first observations and findings about research on Plato, its lexical peculiarities of his dialogues using digital methods at international conference. There was my very close friend, very big, very important classicist, and he made a very ironic comment on the title of my presentation. Oh, Irine, what are you doing? What are you doing else except of making statistics on Plato's texts? Frankly speaking, this comment made me very upset because he is a really exceptional classicist, a very good scholar of Plato's philosophy, and it was a pity that he could not see some new possibilities, some new horizon, let's say, for better reading, for better understanding, for easier and quicker research of Plato's texts. That's why I decided to make the session on Plato's philosophy, not for the Sunoikis society, but more to other people dealing with Plato's Phaedo. Because the digital tools about which I'm going to talk today, you know maybe better than me. So now I will try to share my slides with you. And I have very please I have some technical difficulties. But,
take your time, Irine.
it worked fine during the rehearsal, and I can't understand what happened now. So now it's done. The first slide, you see there's an image from ancient Greek vase, and this image for me is a kind of symbol for digital classics and for digital humanities for some people dealing with digital classics in Eastern Europe, like Dimitar Iliev or Neven Jovanovic, because in 2005 and 2006 and 2007, we had a chance to take part together in excellent seminars on contextualizing classics. And one of the topics which have been discussed there was digital classics and new approaches to reading and understanding of ancient Greek and Latin texts. And this image from ancient Greek vase was the logo of our seminars. For me, this image is a symbol for digital classics, let's say. It reminds us of the laptop and the lady, the ancient Greek lady using the laptop. Okay, I already mentioned in the beginning that Platonists seem and tend to be more conservative in using some new approaches and using digital methods. There is International Plato Society, which has been founded in 1989. And this is the most important organization dealing with Plato's research all over the world. They have branches in many different countries. This organization, this society, IPS, aims at promoting Platonic studies throughout the world and communication among scholars of diverse disciplines working on Plato. They also organize Platonic symposia every 3 years, and they publish proceedings of selected papers of those symposia. They prepare a bibliographical bulletin, which is an excellent one, which is distributed among the members of the society. And also they do their best to promote publication of books on Plato. Here on the slide, you may see the two very important and useful links. One is to International Plato Society, and another one is to their bibliography. They're selecting all publication in different languages from different countries and publish on their website. And by the way, you may see even my publications about Plato, which have been published in Georgia in international periodical. So they are trying to be quite intensive in looking for different publications on Plato. If you go on their website, you see the list of publications since 2000 till 2014. And if you check them, here you see the PDF files, and each PDF files contains the detailed list of all articles, of all books, all translations, all editions of Plato's work in different languages. And I checked out all these 14 files and discovered that there's no research using digital methods. So it's a gap, and the situation, of course, should be improved. There may be some exceptions, but at least International Plato Society don't have such exceptional researches in its bibliography, which is, of course, pity. I would like to share with you some extracts from the Companion to Digital Humanities, and namely from the works by our Greg Crane, Seals, Shivsky, and Smith from 2007, 2009, and 10. This extract is like a treatise for me. This is like an instruction how and why we should deal with digital tools while researching philosophy. This publication, the works of those people made my scholarly life for coming years, and I'm very grateful to them, and I would like to share their thoughts, their ideas with you. In my class, I would share the handouts to my students, but now the common session, instead of handouts, I will share with you several slides. And as I'm not a native English speaker, I would like to ask you to follow the text on the screen in order to understand every detail of those ideas and thoughts. A case study in the digital text analysis of rhetoric and self-reflection in Michel Foucault's reading of Plato's Alcibiades first aims to explore new theoretical models, research methods, and visualization techniques for the identification, analysis, and interpretation of the communication value and ethical import of certain characteristic repeating rhetorical forms in ancient texts, through a focused investigation of one exemplary Platonic dialogue as read through the lens of its most influential contemporary commentator. Though scholars of antiquity have moved aggressively into the digital world, resources in classics and ancient philosophy are estimated to be 20 years ahead of other disciplines. Research methods remain superficial. Theoretical inquiry continues to be mired in attempts to address problems identified in print culture. And ethical reflection remains preoccupied with issues associated with modernity. Nor have theorizing and methodologies kept up with the trends to mobile technologies. The challenge to humanists is to devise new theoretical constructs, methodologies, and ways of organizing, conceptualizing, and imaging information from online collections, to add knowledge in the form of annotations and interpretive markup, and to then carry out new kinds of research using these collection and analysis tools that build in more complex ways on the results obtained from previous searches. This is what I'll try to show today as well. This case study in digital text analysis will prototype a virtual research environment and create various demonstrations of how humanities researchers might take advantage of the computational capabilities made possible by computers, and maybe by our smartphones as well. The hypothesis is that new techniques for visualizing and organizing textual data will reveal previously undetected patterns and connections, help users mine and extract new information from text, make possible the demonstration of the statistical significance of findings, and generate fresh insights about literature that has had a central and enduring influence on our scholarly traditions. This insight will in turn suggest new theoretical paradigms and approaches that can serve as an impetus for further research. The project will contribute to the understanding of the message communicated in early writings, to contemporary ethical inquiry, and to digital humanities research more generally, by providing concrete examples of how new technologies can help scholars persuade old questions in innovative ways and raise novel questions that cannot be addressed using more traditional methods. Recently, I decided to follow these instructions, for which I'm extremely grateful, and as I already mentioned, made some attempts to approach Plato's another dialogue, namely Phaedo, with some digital tools. The short summary of Plato's Phaedo is already uploaded on our GitHub page. Before we continue with some philological issues, I would like to remind you the plot of the work, briefly. This dialogue is also known to ancient readers as On the Soul, the Anima. It's one of the best-known dialogues of Plato's middle period, along with the Republic and Symposium. The Phaedo, which depicts the death of Socrates, is also Plato's fourth and last dialogue to detail the philosopher's final days following Euthyphro, Apology, and Crito. I will go back to Euthyphro later today. Well, now on the slides you will see several paintings influenced by Plato's Phaedo, by the last scene of Socrates' death as described in the dialogue. In this work, Socrates discusses the nature of the afterlife on his last day before being executed by drinking hemlock. Socrates has been imprisoned and sentenced to death by an Athenian jury for not believing in the gods of the state and for corrupting the youth of the city. The dialogue is told from the perspective of one of Socrates' students, Phaedo of Elis. Having been present in Socrates' death, Phaedo relates the dialogue from the day to Echecrates, a Pythagorean philosopher, which is not coincidence at all. By engaging in dialectic with a group of Socrates' friends, which are now on the slides, including the Thebans, Cebes, and Simmias, Socrates explores various arguments for the soul's immortality in order to show that there is an afterlife in which the soul will dwell following death. Phaedo tells the story that following the discussion, he and the others were there to witness the death of Socrates. One of the main themes in the Phaedo is the idea that the soul is immortal. Socrates offers four arguments for the soul's immortality. The so-called cyclical argument or opposite argument, another argument based on theory of recollection, meaning that the knowledge that we gain during our life is not gaining the knowledge, it's just recollecting the knowledge we gained during our previous life or previous lives. Another argument is affinity argument, and the final one, argument from form of life, that is based on Plato's famous theory of forms. Plato's Phaedo is considered as one of the most distinguished dialogues due to its philosophical, religious, mythological, and somehow mystical aspects, and its influence on Neoplatonism and Christian theology, even on hagiography. Despite the fact that Phaedo has been investigated many times from different points of view by classicists and by philosophers, by philologists, the philological aspects of the dialogue, its morphosyntactical and stylistic peculiarities, have not been thoroughly studied, just superficially, and especially in the context of digital humanities, using methods of digital philology. I tried to study Plato's Phaedo many years ago in 1995 when I defended my dissertation, my PhD, which was called Plato's Phaedo, Literature, Philosophy, Mythology, and Mysticism. And it was also published by our university's publishing house in Georgia. In the dissertation thesis, I discussed and analyzed the following issues: compositional and drum peculiarities of the dialogue, rhetorical techniques and stylistic means used by the writer like similes, metaphors, etc., perception of colors in Phaedo and Democritus' treatise on the same topic, typological similarities of Socrates' image and the martyr in hagiography, mythological allusions and Phaedo's relations with mystery religions, immortality of the soul, and its modern scholarly interpretations. The attempt to study Plato's Phaedo's structure, its linguistic and stylistic aspects, was quite successful and satisfactory in 1998 in the context of traditional philological methods. But the results of my research on literary aspects of the dialogue for sure need revision and updating according to the current trends in the humanities, using interdisciplinary approach of digital philology, which is a novelty for academic society till now. My current research, which is already mentioned by Monica in the introductory speech, is rethinking Plato's Phaedo using digital methods. And I try to rethink and restudy Phaedo's linguistic and stylistic aspects using digital methods, to compare the results of the new research with the outcomes of the traditional philological analysis, to distinguish the advantages of digital philology for classics. My research has the following goals. To make morphosyntactic analysis of Phaedo's text using tree banking methods, which is extremely challenging and time-consuming. And I'm very happy that our SunoikisisDC started with tree banking sessions. Another goal is to identify the compositional and stylistic peculiarities of the dialogue based on tree-banked data, to make annotations of Plato's Phaedo for e-learning, and to make the new airline translation of Phaedo from ancient Greek into Georgian, which can be used both for online teaching and open access by academic or non-academic society. I don't deal with translation alignment because we already had some sessions about this topic as well. And also my final goal is to make a new publication, Plato's Phaedo in the context of digital humanities. I do believe that this, what I already mentioned, could be a pattern to study any dialogue of Plato in more advanced, in more modern way. I had the honor to get a scholarship of DID last year and to spend 1 month at Humboldt Chair of Digital Humanities at the University of Leipzig, and I'm extremely grateful for the knowledge and experience I gained, and I do hope to use this experience in my current and future research in most effective ways. Today, I will share with you some initial findings on lexical analysis of Plato's Phaedo using digital methods of research. There are several possibilities for lexical, literary, or stylistic analysis of the text, but I decided to use the Unconc for some reasons which I'll try to explain. Here on the slide, you will see the Unconc. This is a very interesting and interesting software and open source, which has been produced by a British scholar, and Lawrence Anthony, which is working nowadays in Japan, and he's holder of different awards for his academic and technological achievements. So here on the website, you may see how this link is and how the software looks like. After the session, we will upload also some guidelines to this software to Unconc. The shorter one and also the detailed guidelines, and it will be very useful for the people which after the session maybe decide to use this software in their work. According to the author of Untitled, this is a freeware, multi-platform, multi-purpose corpus analysis toolkit designed by the author for specific use in the classroom. Untitled includes a powerful concordancer, word and keyword frequency generators, tools for cluster and lexical bundle analysis, and the word distribution plots. It also offers the choice of simple wildcard searches or powerful regular expression searches, and has an extremely easy-to-use intuitive interface, which is quite important for humanitarians. So, Untitled is an open source, it's a freeware, easy-use tool for lexical analysis. And these two features are very important for the scholar from East European country that is not a very rich humanitarian scholar, not a big master of modern high technologies. This is the interface of Untitled with a different section with concorders, plot, file view, clusters, collocate, word list, keyword list, and so on. And on the left side, you also see the section for corpus files. In computer science, lexical analysis is a process of converting a sequence of characters into a sequence of tokens. And a lexical analysis, that is a sequence of tokens, could be a very good basis for stylistic and even conceptual analysis of a text. I will try to find out some lexical peculiarities of Plato's Phaedo, which could not be investigated, or study of which is much more complicated and time-consuming by using traditional philological methods. While making a lexical analysis, a first step is to prepare a corpus for investigation. In our case, it could be a full text of Plato's Phaedo, but in order to make observations on lexical, that is, stylistic and conceptual peculiarities of Plato's dialogue's different parts, it's important to have a structured corpus. So, we should make a structured corpus, and in the beginning, before I continue with some lexical analysis, I will try to present my view on Phaedo's structure. One can see that according to the development of the action in Phaedo, 9 parts can be distinguished, and a certain regularity is obvious. Only a few characters figure in the work. They are Phaedo, Echecrates, Simmias, Kebes, Crito, Xantippe. Phaedo, whose narration is the basis of the whole creation, Echecrates, who sometimes appears as a participator in the dialogue with Phaedo and sometimes as a passive listener, Socrates himself, who actually holds the philosophical dialogue and proves the soul immortality, or tries to prove soul's immortality, both from the philosophical and from the mythological point of view. Simmias and Kebes, who take part in the philosophical dialogue directly, Crito, the guard, and the Xantippe, Socrates' wife, who appears only episodically in Phaedo's so-called descriptive parts. The development of the action is actually determined by the interchange of these characters. They are changing, and the scene is changing accordingly. The conversation comes to the action to the discussion, and vice versa. So this is the dynamic nature of this dialogue, and of some other dialogues of Plato as well. Sometimes we listen to the dialogue taking place in Athens or in Phlius. Sometimes we watch the actions of the philosopher and his friends. The structure consisting of parts is made by interchanging of these three scenes. Actually, the play is performed before our eyes, where the scene of three types succeed each other. But by what sequence and principles do they interchange? If we consider each scene as an element of the dialogue structure, and if we construct the scheme using them, we'll be able to clear up the principle by which structural elements are distributed. Let's mark each type of picture or scene with the letters A, B, C accordingly. The A, Phaedo and Echecrates and their participation in the dialogue. The B, the description of Socrates' actions in prison before and after philosophical dialogue. And C, the philosophical dialogue between Socrates and his friends, its beginning, continuation, and the end. The unity of A, B, and C elements makes a structure with the following 9 parts. And you will see now the parts with their descriptions and their sizes as well on the slides. We begin with A, with exposition. The first conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, which consists of 4,517 characters. B, Socrates in prison before the philosophical dialogue, 2,298 characters. C, the beginning of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue. Please note, 66,308 characters. A, again, interlude. The second conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, the comments of the first part of the philosophical dialogue, 1,261 characters. C, the continuation of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue, 27,203 characters. Interlude. The third conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, the comments on the second part of the philosophical dialogue, 459 characters. C, again, the end of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue, 31,461 characters. C, conclusion, Socrates' last hours spent in prison after the philosophical dialogue, 4,831 characters. And A, last words to Echecrates, 884 characters. As we see, the monolithic structure is made by the following repetition. Element A 4 times, element B twice, element C 3 times. Element A as the exposition, 2 interludes, and the conclusion make a certain prop in the structure. Element A unites the whole dialogue, but at the same time it breaks up the so-called dialogue part itself, which we marked as C, which is represented by a triad accordingly. You see, A, B, C, A, C, A, B, A, such structure. By element B, inserting at the beginning and the end of the structure, the spirit of symmetry is created, which is increased by elements C and A, rhythmically interchanging in the structure. The so-called dialogue part with 2 interludes, that is, interchanging of the C and A elements whole complex, C, A, C, A, C, makes a certain center around which the A and B elements are symmetrically placed and the structure is counterbalanced by them. A certain mixture of the parallel division and circle symmetry is presented in the dialogue part itself by the interchanging of philosophical discussion and interludes. Another important question, and the main the first question, let's say, while dealing with lexical analysis of any text, what is the length correlation between the structure-making elements? The beginning of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogues, C1, 66,708 characters, exceeds its continuation, C2, which is 27,203 characters, and the end, C3, which is 31,461 characters, which are nearly the same length twice over. Using AdConc, I did some changes in my older observations. In my dissertation and in my book, I was writing that the exposition A1 also outnumbers the interludes having the same quantity, A2, A3, and the conclusion, A4, which presents the shorter elements. But now, using digital tools, I have updated more accurate data. The exposition A1 also outnumbers the interludes A2 and A3, and the conclusion A4. The element A3, that is interlude, the third conversation of Phaedo and Iphicrates, presents the shorter elements. As we see, to the description of Socrates' actions and everyday details is given twice as much space after the philosophical dialogue than before it. The length of the dialogue part itself is about 9 times greater than the total size of the other elements, which underlines the genre peculiarity of the work once more, the main role of discussion, dialogue. As the analysis shows, Plato provides an ordinary and quite complicated structure with its props, uniting and counterbalancing elements. The circle symmetry and parallel division principles are provided at the same time. A kind of mixture is given here. The center of the structure is the whole complex of the elements distributed by the circle symmetry and parallel division principles, C, A, C, A, C. One of the elements, A, appears as a prop of the whole structure. At the same time, around this circle, C, A, C, A, C, the A and B elements are distributed according to the circle symmetry. There is a very close content, semantic, and emotional connection between the passages of Phaedo, that is, between the structure-making elements. The structure of Phaedo can be imagined as a pattern, and its constituting threads are closely connected to each other by the peculiar rule characteristic of this pattern only. Neither phrase nor an episode can be taken or shifted without destroying the composition pattern. Each passage arises from the foregoing one and inevitably needs the next one as well. Each episode continues the previous one and paves the way for the next passage. At the same time, there is a logical connection within each fragment. Let's see which are the lexical peculiarities of each structural part of the dialogue and how they are connected to the concept of each division. I would like to go back to the author of AdConc, to Lawrence Anthony, and to quote his words. One of the first things that a user will do when analyzing a new corpus is to generate a list of all the words in the corpus. Word lists are useful as they suggest interesting areas for investigation and highlight problem areas in the corpus. According to the study done on Phaedo using the AdConc, Plato's this dialogue consists of 4,902 word types and 22,699 word tokens. but this list includes all lexical formatives. The most frequently used word is kai, used 1,322 times. Here on your screen, you see the screenshot from Antconc. Here are the most frequently used words, and also you may see on the left side of the screen the extract, the exact places from the dialogue. Of course, we should refine our search. We should concentrate on, let's say, meaningful words. Therefore, we should create and apply a so-called stop list, which will help us to avoid counting the words which are not of special interest for us. As Lawrence Anthony argues, usually it is important to use a stop list to avoid counting high-frequency function words when generating a word list. So I made a stop list which included all kinds of articles, particles, pronouns. By the way, before I proceed, I should say that the study on using the particles and pronouns by Plato is extremely challenging, and it could result in some outstanding observation, but this is a title as a topic of another big research. After using the stop list, I got quite a different picture. 4,290 word types and 9,459 word tokens. And the most frequent 10 tokens in Plato's Phaedo are the following. You may see in the slides the screen. These most frequent tokens are Ephe, 244, Enai, 216, Gebes, 82 times, Hutos, 65, Socrates, 65, Socrates in vocative, Dogei, 57, Estin, 50, Eche, 50, Psyche, 46, Leges, 43. It's a dialogue, so the second person is the form the form of verbs in second person is also very often used. And the last word, the 10th word, is soma. We should note that I just listed the most frequent forms, and the real frequency of the words should be found including all possible grammar forms of each lexical formative. I would like to pay your attention to the fact that there are some specific words which are used in this dialogue more frequently. And we could guess that in some other dialogues of Plato, maybe some other words will be more frequently used. So, why these words and not the others? Can we find the answer to this question? Let's try. Ephe is to say, it's a dialogue, and it's natural. Enai or estin, to be, it has a crucial grammatical function. Socrates and Gebes, they are two personal. The others, Hutos, in kind of explanation. Dogei, dogei moi, dogei soi, I think, it seems to me. Nobody's sure, they just express their opinion. Eche, to have, it has a crucial grammatical function. Leges or lego, lege, to speak. The literary work is mainly from speeches. And last but not least, Psyche and Soma. This is a dialogue about the immortality of the soul, about the death, that is, about separation of the soul from the body, about the relationship of body and soul. So we see that the frequency of the words in this dialogue is not coincidence at all. And this frequency is closely connected to the main concept of the dialogue. Today, during my session, I will deal with the use of several words: psyche, soma, apotnesko, and teleutao. In the beginning, I will use the condenser tool, the main purpose of which is to show how a search term is used in a target corpus, and for users who want to see where a search term appears, Antconc offers the condenser search term plot tool. And detailed information about all these tools you may find online using the link I already provided on my slides, and also in the guidelines which will be uploaded on the GitHub after my session. So we are able to detect automatically the use of the root psych and som in our whole corpus. We see the root psych appears in the following forms: psyche, psychen, psychai, psyche, psychas, psychais, psychai, psychas, psychomena, psychestai, psychoito, and appears 150 times. As concerns the soma, the word soma, the root som, we have it 45 times, somata 58 times, somat twice. So the soma appears 105 times. So it's absolutely natural, because psyche prevails soma, that is, soul prevails the body, according to Plato, according to Phaedo, according to Pythagoreans, according to soul's immortality concept. So the psyche is one of the most important words in the dialogue. Here you will see also the screenshot from Antconc, and you may see each use of psyche in the contexts. And also you may check exact extracts, exact episodes, passages from the dialogue, and from different structural units of the dialogue as we structured in the beginning. So there's another slide here. You see distribution of psyche in different parts, or in different structural units of the text. So it's very helpful to compare the frequency of number of the use of the word in different structural units, in order to link the usage of this or that word with the concept, with the content of each structural unit. Here we may see the same concerning soma. This is distribution of soma in the whole corpus. And here you see distribution of soma in different structural parts. Now I will try to summarize use of psyche and soma in different parts of the dialogue. Psyche appears in the following parts: the beginning of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue 80 times, in the interlude, the second conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, the comments of the first part of the philosophical dialogue just twice, the continuation of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue 37 times, the end of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue 30 times, and the conclusion, Socrates' last hours spent in prison after the philosophical dialogue just once. As concerns the soma, we see these words in the beginning of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue 81 times, the continuation of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue 15 times, and the end of Socrates and friends' philosophical dialogue 9 times. I would like to say a few words about the verb death, about the words expressing death, which are apotnesko and teleutao. these two words are used by Plato in Phaedo in order to express the notion of death. And I remember when I made my first dissertation on Plato's Phaedo, I asked the question, why these two terms are used, and why Plato uses so often the word teleutao, which is connected to teleut, which is connected to the end, which the primary semantics of which is the end. And I was thinking that the use of this word was not so much compatible with the concept of the immortality of soul. But one of my colleagues told me in our discussions we had that, okay, according to Plato, according to Phaedo, death is not the end of the souls of the life, it's because the soul is immortal, but this is the end of soul's life in our life on the earth. So it's the end of physical life. So this explanation was somehow acceptable for me, but still this is a question which quite often asked by researchers, by scholars, why Plato or any other writer uses this or that verb or known word in general in different contexts with different purposes, connected with different concepts. So we see that Plato uses the following forms of apotnesko and teleutao: apotanontos, apotanomen, apotanonton, apotani, apotanusi, apotanon, apotneskei, apotneskoi, apotneskontas, apotneskonti, apotneskontos, apotneske, apotano. And teleutan, teleuton, teleutonta, teleutesanta, teleutesanton, teleutem, teleutesanti, teleutesasin, teleutesomen, teleuta, teleutontes, teleutosa, teleutosan, teteleutekosi, teteleutekotas, teteleutekotes, teteleutekoton. Well, we proceed with other question. Why and where apotnesko and teleutao? We see that teleutao is used 33 times, apotnesko 39 times. They are distributed in a different way. Why and how a root teleut and apot appear in different parts of the dialogue? Is the distribution of the specific word somehow connected to the concept of each part? Let's see. Now on the slides you will see that the use of these two verbs in different parts of the dialogue. The exposition and the first conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, apotnesko is used twice and teleutao just once. In Socrates' being in prison before the philosophical dialogue, teleutao is used once. The beginning of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue, apotnesko 31 times, teleutao 15 times. The interlude, the second conversation of Phaedo and Echecrates, apotnesko just once. The continuation of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue, apotnesko twice, teleutao 9 times. In the end of Socrates and his friends' philosophical dialogue, apotnesko 3 times, teleutao 4 times. In the conclusion, Socrates' last hours spent in prison after the philosophical dialogue, teleutao is used just once. And in the last words to Echecrates, teleutao is used only twice. There is a small observation. The root apot or apotnesko is used more than the other one, but there is one peculiarity. Both terms appear in the philosophical parts of the dialogue. Apotnesko appears 37 times in this context, while the teleutao just 28 times. In non-philosophical context, we see apotnesko only twice, while the teleutao is used in such cases 5 times. So in Phaedo, the word apotnesko is more related to the philosophical and religious topics than the word teleutao. Before we continue with some other issues, I would like to mention another feature of Antkong. It has keyword list tool, which finds which words appear unusually frequently in a corpus compared with the same words in a reference corpus that must also be specified by the user. So, using keyword list tool, we could compare the use of the words soul, body, death, or any other word in Phaedo with the other dialogues of Plato. But this is another issue, it's may be discussed separately, and this may be connected to the research of authenticity and chronology of Plato's dialogues. So, concluding, I would say that the digital methods, and namely Antkong, a tool for statistical analysis of the text, could be a good basis for future developments in literary and linguistic analysis of classical text, and namely of Plato. I would like to say a few words about the possibilities of tree banking for Plato. Now I will show you one sample of tree banked third session from Euthyphro. Unfortunately, nowadays there is only one dialogue fully tree banked by our dear friend and member of Sunoikisis's team by Giuseppe Celano. And it's a great job, really. And I also started tree banking of Phaedo, but it's time consuming, it's quite challenging, and I'm in the very beginning. But still, I try to do my best in order to proceed. Well, here you see the Euthyphro's first sentence, and now this is tree banked Phaedo, also first sentence. I don't go in details of tree banking because you already have more information about it. We should say that having tree banked means to have detailed morphological and syntactic analysis of the text, some measurable evidence for stylistic analysis. While talking about the style of the author, we mean epithets, similes, metaphors. While analyzing the text with traditional philological methods, some of the epithets or similes may escape from us, as it happens with me when I try to read and analyze Plato's Phaedo using traditional methods. Now, while I'm reading the text using Antkong and trying to tree bank, I see some epithets, some similes, which I couldn't notice before without having a thorough analysis of the text. So, and when we have data about exact data about adjectives and particles as marked ups, or as it's much more difficult to not notice them. So it's easier to notice them and to analyze them. For example, we check all. We know we are looking for similes in the text, and we know that very often it's used with the hosper or host, and we check all uses of hosper or host with just one or several clicks in a couple of minutes, which is time consuming, and we have very exact data, very exact lexical data for stylistic analysis. Except of this, we may observe how interchanging of philosophical discourse in so-called narrative parts of Plato's dialogues influence their syntactical features and make the text more or less dynamic or static. We do our job easier, quicker, or more precisely. We gain more, let's say, some mathematical data on which we may focus our observations and conclusions. Well, some final conclusions. While analyzing Plato's different dialogues using tree banking or Antkonk, we may have measurable and evidence-based results and conclusions concerning the morphological, syntactic, or lexical features of different dialogues. We may compare the results for different works in order to solve still existing issue of Plato's works, chronology, and even authenticity. There was a work, quite interesting work by Teslev many years ago, published on chronology of Plato's dialogues, and this work was more or less successful. But today, having all these digital tools, tree bank, Antkonk, and many other possibilities, we may have better, more precise data on Plato's structures, lexical peculiarities, stylistic, syntactic peculiarities, in order to make conclusions about the chronology or about the authorship. For example, a big issue, a big discussion concerning the seventh letter can be somehow solved using digital tools as well. So let's summarize the future of literary study of Plato's dialogues. The research could be done on linguistic and stylistic peculiarities of Plato's works using interdisciplinary approach and digital methods. Comparative analysis of the results achieved through traditional philological and digital methods could be provided. And this comparative analysis is one of the most valuable discoveries I've made for the last years, because I compared my own observations, my conclusions with more advanced methods, and it's a possibility for me to go in depth of my research in more effective way. And also Plato's dialogues could be tree banked and annotated for research and teaching or e-learning purposes, which is the most time consuming and challenging task, I would say. But while having this, we may solve many other philological problems easier, quicker, and more effectively. New translations of Plato should be provided for open access. I already done my translation of Plato's Phaedo, but after alignment, it also will be available online for free access. And the last point, if more Platonists will be inspired by digital methods and join the digital humanities society, digital humanities community, both students working with ancient Greek and also wider society interested in classics could be supported with a system localized for different language speakers, and it may be done also in the framework of the Open Philology project of the University of Leipzig, and also this project can be supported with additional material. These are my, let's say, preliminary findings, my initial findings, my ideas and thoughts about the possibility of read and understand Plato more effectively in depth using digital methods. Thank you very much for your attention.
Irine, thank you very much. Really, I mute you in 1 second because there is an echo, sorry. Okay, so Irine, thank you very much. This was very, very interesting. So you could show the use of these tools, so a sort of distant reading for reading the text of Plato. And at the beginning you mentioned the Platonists. and also in the conclusion. So thank you, because one of the goals of Sunoikis is to build, well, one community for digital humanities, but to try to build other sub-communities involving different people interested in different texts. So this is one of the goals. So we would like to have a community of Platonists working with digital tools. So thank you very much, because this is really one of the goals of Sunoikis. Well, we have in the chat, well, Gabby, yes, it's true. So yeah, an overview of digital methods for working on a text. Yes, because thanks to these digital methods, we can see how many words, so we can really see, especially for example, in this case, the use of psyche and soma. So there is a question by Gabby. You have to unmute yourself, Irine. Irine, we can't hear you.
Okay, thank you very much for very nice comments. I'm very touched. Before I ask to Gabi's question, I would like to mention that I remember last year we in this session of Annie's, she also used AndConc in her analysis. I remember we discussed using of AndConc in literary analysis during our discussions, I think, in Leipzig. My book will be published, of course. It will be published, and before I publish the book, I will start publishing some articles, maybe from September, from autumn. And by the way, I am invited in Brazil in the beginning of July. There's a big Platonic symposium, one of the symposia I already mentioned at the beginning of my session. And this symposium is dedicated to Plato's Phaedo. There's 200 or 300 scholars going to Brazil, to Brasilia for this International Plato Symposium to talk about Phaedo. I will present, the title of my presentation is Lexical Analysis of Plato using Digital Methods. So I will continue preaching in Brazil as well, and I already checked the program. There are 200 or 300 contributions, but there's only one paper presented with digital humanities approach.
And Irina, do you plan, so this will be three publications, but do you plan to publish something online? Not
Yes.
only the text, but also.
Yes, I will publish online as well when I will be more satisfied with my results. I'm doing now with I'm analyzing usage of logos and mythos in the same dialogue, which is extremely crucial, because logos may mean word, may mean discourse, may mean discussion, may mean just argument. So it's very helpful to analyze, to understand the different usages and semantics of this word using these digital methods in the context of these different structural units, but it takes time. And another issue which also should be analyzed with the digital tools is the usage of eidos and idea, which means the same. And there's another question, why Plato uses this or that term in different contexts. There's an explanation that Plato's terminology is still under development, but you know, in order to proceed with some conclusions, we need more exact, more evidence-based data. And when I have results about the usage of logos, mythos, eidos, and idea in Phaedo, I will publish my results of my research online.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is a big work, because Plato, of course, is a big author. And I have a question about your work on the translation. are you planning to align the text with your translation and other translations? Your translation is the first one into Georgian? No, I think there are other translations in into Georgian.
Well, there's only one translation in Georgian made in 60s, but it's more pre-translation. It's not so accurate as it should be, I think. I already done my translation in my student years as a PhD student when I made my dissertation, but now I am revising my own translation. And after revision and after finishing the tree banking of Fido, I will make a translation alignment as well. It will be my translation, quite exact translation. More, not for a wider society, not so easy to read, but more accurate, more close to the text. More, well, my translation will be more for scholarly aims and goals, and it will be easier to align with the Greek text, because the Georgian translation which exists can't be so easily aligned.
Yeah, I understand the problem. This is usually the problem with the translation alignment and the need we have now to have literal translation. And usually this is the method to work both on pre-banking and translation alignment, so that you can do both, because when you start aligning, you want also to produce pre-banking. So, and as for the Greek text, you are going to use an edition, an established edition, or you plan to produce your Greek text of the Fido?
I couldn't hear that. Can you repeat the question? It was echoed.
Yeah. I have muted you because there is an echo. So as for the text, produce a new Greek text of the Fido, your text, or you use an edition of the Greek text? So do you plan to produce a new edition, a new critical edition?
No, I don't. I don't make the critical edition. No, I just use the Galaxy edition.
You already have a lot to do, so I understand. Okay, so I don't know if there are other questions. We still have 3 minutes. I see in the chat that Anisa is asking about Brazil, of course.
I will answer. Well, I will let you know when coming to Brazil, when I know exact data, with great pleasure. Well, and as we have time, I would like to say just a few words about the digital humanities we're trying to do here in Georgia, as Monica already mentioned in the beginning. Actually, we started to deal with the digital humanities in 2014. After 2 schools, it was one summer school and another winter school on introduction to digital humanities made by Monica, Simona, and another one in summer school on using digital methods in literary studies done by Dimitar and also our other friend and colleague Gianpaolo Renello, which introduced to me the AntConc. And also we had possibility to visit Leipzig several times, my students, and so also me. And all this collaboration, all this summer and winter school, the seminars, was a very good basis, very good beginning. And we managed to find funding from the Ministry of Education and Science of Georgia, from Rustavelli National Science Foundation for the schools, and also we got funding for digital epigraphy. And there will be a special session devoted to this, done by my colleague Levan Gordesiani. We are doing e-corpus digital edition of Greek inscription of Georgia. So the digital humanities started in Georgia with the help and support of Leipzig chair of digital humanities, of our trips, of Sunoikisis, and I would like to thank everybody. And I would like also to express my gratitude to my Bulgarian colleagues, which organized a very nice workshop in EpiDoc in 2013. The start of my relationship and collaboration with. So thank you. Because of your help, with your help and support, in Georgia, in ancient Colchis, we started digital humanities.
Well, Irine, thank you very much. Yes, I remember when we came to Georgia 2 years ago, and I'm very, very happy to see that only in 2 years you have started such important projects. This one about Plato, I know that your colleagues and your collaborators are working on other Greek texts, Aeschylus, for example, and then, of course, epigraphy, which is very, very important for this big project for the Black Sea, so to have these collections online. So, of course, I'm very happy. So we have to thank you for your immediate reply to this stimulus from the digital humanities community. And of course, Georgia is one of the first members, like Brazil and other countries, that have started participating since the beginning to Sunoikis' digital classics. So you came to Leipzig, so thanks to your work. We have the Sunoikis community. So now time is over. We have to end our common session. Thank you very much. But we will see again the Georgian team in a few weeks because, as Irine said, they are going to present their work on digital epigraphy. So thank you very much. See you next Wednesday. We will talk about lexicography and geography, lexicography and geography. And so thank you again. You can find the live broadcast in GitHub, the class outline, and then Irine is going to upload also the slides. So thank you all and good night. Bye. Bye-bye.